We're going to call the County Board of Commissioners special meeting to order. Start with a pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Commissioner Smasko, Commissioner Baldwin, Commissioner Beaton,
Present.
Commissioner Trello,
Here.
Commissioner Rushing,
Here.
Commissioner Vanden Bosch, Commissioner Chairperson Bone.
Here. Additions, deletions, changes to the agenda. Seeing none, do I have a motion?
Make a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
Support.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Are there any citizens wishing to address the board at this time? Seeing none, new business, item A. Dan, you want to give a little bit of background on this? And we've got Jeff Donaldson here too, he knows quite a bit about it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name's Dan Casey, and I'm the CEO of the Economic Development Alliance. Thank you, first of all, for coming in on short notice. No one on the county staff anticipated that we were going to need a vote on such short notice for this project. So basically, there's a pass-through grant. I guess Jeff's probably the one that should be talking about it, but there's a pass-through grant through EAGLE for the EDA Business Center project. Originally, we wanted our organization to apply for it, but EAGLE said that's not permitted. So it had to come either from a community or from the Brownfield Authority. And so thank you for allowing the Brownfield Authority to apply for the grant on our behalf. We originally requested a little bit less money than what's in the agenda today. However, and I'll explain what the money is intended to be used for. But as we went through the process with EAGLE, they weren't entirely sure that we were going to need to do some of the activities that the grant would pay for, and so they asked for some additional testing to be done in the soil, and they agreed to pay for it. So they upped the amount of the grant to $750,000 to cover those additional testing expenses. Basically, we are proposing to build our building on a brownfield site. And it's a site that was supposedly cleaned up back in 2002. It was formerly industrial. I think everybody's familiar with it. However, after the cleanup, the owners of the property received a partial clearance letter from, at the time it was MDEQ, which is the Department of Environmental Quality. Today it's known as EAGLE. So they received a partial clearance on the property at that time. In later years, the state changed their levels on their tables for various types of minerals and contaminants. And so some of those things that were left in the ground are now considered contaminated again, even though it was cleaned up in the past. It's not a significant finding per se, but what it does is it means that we have to treat the soil and the groundwater that comes up during construction in a specific way. And we have limited options for what we can do with it. So first of all, the water. Typically in this situation, the water would be either collected and then it would be in containers and then it would be dumped off site at a landfill that was certified for carrying these kind of contaminants, or it could, in certain circumstances, could be put into the city's system. So we're prepared to do both. And so groundwater is partially covered during this project. Engineers estimated how much groundwater potentially could come off of the site, but it's an educated guess at best because it depends on the weather and so forth. Our groundbreaking is proposed for June intentionally to try to mitigate as much groundwater as possible. Secondly, the the soil. So obviously, soil has to be removed from the ground, and if it's got contaminants in it, you can't just do anything you want with it. In our case, the limited closure of that site by DEQ allows the soil to be spread on site, and so we will be doing a little bit of that with some small berms, but at the end of the day, we're going to have to move a lot of soil into a landfill. And so the grant also covers a significant amount of that soil that has to be removed. And the third thing, and the most expensive thing, is a vapor intrusion system that goes in the building. Because it's a potentially contaminated site, there might be odors that could leak up through the dirt into a building. And to protect people and the public, any visitors to the building, they've created these systems that collect those odors below the building level. It gets funneled up through the building through a duct system and then vented at the roof. And so that system for our project is estimated to cost as much as $250,000. And so that's a part of this grant as well. So the Brownfield Authority made application. It's a lengthy process. We applied back in the spring, I believe it was, Jeff? Yeah, early spring is when we applied. And so we... It's a two-step process, right? Yeah. So anyway, two-step process. The first step was approved, and then we were invited to submit a full application, and we were notified on the first that they had approved the full application. It came with the condition that it had to be, that the grant agreement had to be signed no later than the 15th, and that's because of the end of the budget year for Eagle. And so in order to get that money captured and available for the project, we need a resolution approved by this board. Now, in terms of the project, originally it was a $5.1 million budget, and it was funded primarily through a federal grant and some other grant monies and donations, as well as EDA funds. We put it out to bid in the spring. Bids came back at a surprisingly, I would even describe it as ridiculously high price. The low bid was $10.5 million. That was 60% over the budget and over the estimate. So that was a pretty hard body blow for the committee that was working on this, and created some challenges. Now, the Eagle grant was already underway at that time, but we didn't know if we were going to get it. So the Eagle grant actually covers some of that cost. Anyway, we have since redesigned the building significantly. It's now 4,000 square feet smaller. It's going to be a 3-story building instead of a 2-story building, meaning there'll be a lot less steel in the ground and a lot less soil that needs to be removed. It's a very simple building to build now as compared to the previous design. And after we completed that redesign, we applied for a state grant called RAP 2.0, which is for projects exactly like ours that are having gaps in their project that are preventing them from being completed, and they're meant to be essentially development-ready projects. And so we submitted a grant application. Fortunately, the state funds under that grant were spread out among the 10 regions in Michigan, so we were only competing against other projects in our region, 7 counties. I did everything I could to find out who's applying. There wasn't much, so we feel like we have a very strong chance of landing that grant, and that would cover the entire gap in our project. I learned last week that the scoring on that grant is completed. They might make the announcements as soon as the end of this month, but even if it's not then, it's going to be in October, so it's coming up. So we'll know very soon whether we have the funds in hand to complete this project. I can tell you that the EDA board has made a decision that if we don't find the funding we need to complete the capital stack on this project by the end of this year, we're going to cancel the project. And frankly, we're going to be forced to cancel it because we'll be running out of time with the federal money, which has a deadline for when we have to complete our project. So having said all of that, we're still very committed to this project. The board's very committed. It's looking very good. The RAP 2.0 grant, as I said, was really written for a project like ours. And entrepreneurialism, incubators, those were some of the types of uses that were called out as eligible under that grant. So, Jeff, did I cover it all?
Yeah, just one thing, we talk about the initial money. There was what was called coal-impacted communities. What happened is that basically the coal-fired plants are going bye-bye, as we all know. Now, granted, we got the gas fire to backfill it, but in coal-impacted communities, they were funding up to, I think, 80% of these projects. So we scored out very well because we're a coal-impacted community. It would be like us, Trenton, River Rouge. There's only a handful of them. So that's how we got the first initial round of money. Yes, we were sticker shock when we got the opening of the bids, and then we were going to cancel. Then, like I said, then this RAP 2.0 thing came out, and really, if you didn't have a project that was alive, viable, shovel-ready, you couldn't even apply for it. So, I mean, it actually fit well for this particular project, so we will know sooner than later.
Right, very soon. Okay.
Anything else? Any questions for Dan? All right.
Make a motion to approve it?
Support.
Discussion. Let's get a roll call.
Commissioner Baldwin?
Yes.
Commissioner Beeden?
Yes.
Commissioner Torello?
Yes.
Commissioner Rushing?
Yes.
Commissioner Chairperson Ball?
Yes. Item 5, receive and file.
I'll make a motion to receive and file packets and all information present at our seats.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you for coming on such short notice, everyone.